Battle to sign Victor Osimhen is now on. Have we found our Conor Gallagher replacement? And today, the club strike a massive deal that could help boost hopes of redeveloping Stamford Bridge. Tons of things to break down and discuss. I know I haven't been in the past few days. To be honest with you guys, I've not been in the right headspace. Some live stuff's happening behind the scenes. So I've been using the past few days as an opportunity to work on some other projects and things on the side that I've been putting off. So you guys will find out about them in the not too distant future. So I hope you guys are happy to see me back, of course. Share your thoughts and opinions on the stories. Sit back, relax, and without wasting any more time. Today, the club have completed an 80 million deal to buy the Stoll Mansions, which is literally adjacent to Stamford Bridge. Now, we beat out 12 rival bids for the 1.9 acre site, and this is big news. Now, this doesn't definitely mean that we are guaranteed now to redevelop and expand Stamford Bridge, but it gives us the flexibility, it gives us the options right now, because this was the piece of land that had to get acquired for us to give us hope around this potential future. And you know what, ideally I prefer for us to maybe expand Stamford Bridge or redevelop a new stadium, of course, within our current location, because I like the history of the area, and I do think history, sentiment, it's an important part of being a fan. You have that connection to your club for a reason, not just because, you win a lot or there's a lot of silverware, but it's a lot deeper than that. And a part of me would like to one day take my kids to games and still take them to like Fulham Broadway and still take them to Stamford Bridge. But at the same time, if the costs are just too high and it means that we have to build a new stadium within a location nearby, I can accept that. But whilst there's hope, let's explore every single possibility to make sure that we can redevelop a new stadium at Stamford Bridge. But now that we bought this land, it doesn't mean that we're going to immediately now start redeveloping and building things. We actually can't redevelop or start anything until 2027. And for the next year, until 2025, we're going to spend this time, of course, rehoming the veterans that have been staying in the mansions. So this time will be spent helping rehome them in new locations or homes, or potentially other, Stoll properties as well too. And I think obviously we have to take great care in ensuring that we find the right homes for veterans that have, served their country, and they need to be protected, they need to be kept safe as well. So it's a very positive news, it's a very positive direction we're going in. Of course, securing this land was massive in terms of giving us any hope at redeveloping the stadium, so fingers crossed we find the opportunity to do so. So my friends, share your thoughts and opinions. How do you feel about this great news? But before we discuss the transfer news, let's discuss some more club news, because today there was big news surrounding a potential FFP boost, because Premier League clubs have unanimously voted in favour for a new provisional financial rule that essentially mirrors the UEFA squad cost control measures. And essentially this means that from the 25-26 season, the spending cap of clubs will be capped at 70% of their club revenue and turnover. Of course, this can be used towards paying towards player costs, wages, fees, and it also includes amortized fees as well too. But there is going to be a bit of balance brought in, and there's talks of this two-tier system. So for the first tier, if you're a club that's competing in Europe, it means that your spending will be capped at 70% of your club revenue, because you're bringing in so much extra money from competing in Europe. That makes a bit of sense. And if you're outside of Europe, it means that your spending is capped at 85% of your turnover, which, listen, if you've got Champions League or European football, you're still going to earn way more money than clubs who are earning around 85% outside of Europe. But at least it brings a bit of balance. And I guess the most curious thing that we're all thinking, how does this exactly now affect us? Now, sadly, I don't really have any concrete answers to give you guys. I don't want to start speculating, getting hopes up, and start, gassing stories. We know that we are still being investigated for being under breach alongside clubs like Man City, but I'm now thinking to myself, could we potentially beat this case because of the timing of this new rule change? Now, the final votes for this will come in from the 5th of June, so there's still a bit of time, and obviously we know that we have to sell players before the 30th of June to keep within profit and sustainability laws. But from next season onwards, there is going to be a transition period where we're going to start getting ready for the new rule change, but any clubs that have been punished already or have to serve punishments, of course, they will still be in place for next season until the massive shift from the 25-26 season. I mean, maybe it makes sense. A lot of clubs have argued that when these profit and sustainability laws first came through over 10 years ago, the land shift has changed now. You have to take into account inflation. You have to consider that fees, agents' wages, they've all gone up. And, for clubs to still compete, they must be paying prices alongside the new norms. So, it does. So I guess it doesn't surprise me that every single Premier League club has agreed to this new rule change, because you'd imagine with the punishments at Ederson, Nottingham Forest and others, clubs don't want to be in a position they feel they should never have been in because of these old and antiquated rules. So that is some potentially promising news surrounding, this FFP boost. So let's see what happens with this. We wait until the 5th of June. So let's get the final piece of club news out the way, and we discuss our teen sensation in Kendry Paez. He just played a phenomenal game against San Lorenzo in the Libertadores. You know what I'm talking about. He won man of the match there. And back home in Ecuador, they're talking about him in the same mold and vein as the young Lionel Messi. And, I'm playing the clips. Hopefully are still going to be fine and safe, because these aren't normal performances from a teenager. I mean, his assurance, his confidence on the ball, how he's affecting the game, how he's playing forward, how he's making positive actions happening, how he makes those positive actions happen. His striking technique, the skill, the first touch. At 16 years old, he already looks like one of the best players actually from this comp. And naturally, us fans are wondering, what is the plan for his future when he is finally able to join us in the 25-26 season? Now, we are getting some reports from Ecuadorian journalist and Danex Yakome. Surprisingly, he's reporting that the plan could be to loan him out to Strasbourg for 1 year, just to get him used to life in Europe. Now, a lot of us are probably scratching our heads as to why that would be the case, for all the hype around him, the promise, the money we've spent, and the things he's doing. He's a first team national player at 16 years old. He's a first choice player who's playing continentally right now at such a young age. You look at the promise of guys like Lamine Yamal, where he's been given that chance by Barcelona. They're honing and fine-tuning his talents, and they're keeping him very close. They have a very watchful eye over him. Why are we not doing the same thing for a Kendry Paez? Now, I think it's a very interesting debate, and I kind of feel like my hunch is, I'm a bit disappointed by this news. But that doesn't mean that I can't maybe understand the wisdom potentially behind him maybe finding himself first playing for Strasbourg, where he could hopefully play week in, week out. He'll be playing alongside guys like maybe Gabriel and Andre Santos. And who else we decide to sign? And I guess it's not too dissimilar to a move that Man City are doing, where they've signed the talented Claudio Echeverri from River Plate. He's loaned out to River Plate until the end of the season, and then from next season he's going to Girona for 1 year. And I guess for talents like this, you want them to be playing week in, week out. You don't want them to be competing for first team spots, but I guess maybe Kendry Paez will be competing alongside Cole Palmer on that right channel. I think that's the best area for Kendry to really demonstrate and play his game. And I think if he's going to start out his career in Europe, if he's consistently playing in the right wing where he has the license to drift inside, attack his man, show that goal scoring threat, I think maybe they're thinking this is the best thing for him. Now, I think a lot of this depends on whether Mauricio Pochettino will still be our manager by the time Kendry arrives. It's looking very doubtful at this point in time, because it's believed that Pochettino is more than open for Kendry to join up with the first team straight away, so he can keep a watchful eye over him. With players like Caicedo keeping an arm around him, Enzo, and the Latin influence and Spanish-speaking influence at the club, you'd feel that, Kendry could really acclimatise maybe even better at Chelsea without us maybe risking his development at a club that, anything could happen, right? I mean, what if he got injured? What if they sack the manager all of a sudden and he changes up the tactical ideas? We've seen this happen so many times where, how many loans necessarily become super successful, and how many loans get affected by outside forces that no one accounted for when they agree to these loan moves to begin with. So I'm kind of in two places with this. I can see the pros, I can see the cons. Maybe for Kendry, it might be best for him to take 1 more year away from us, because realistically, let's say he was to come here tomorrow. With how we're playing, with our lack of development in terms of building like a proper strong structure and identity of play. I know it's like the very like tired, boring statement you hear all the time, but in terms of like being that fine-tuned team that's been consistently working on a way of playing and one way of playing for over a year, we aren't there just yet. So what exactly would he be coming into? For Lamine Yamal, he can play for Barcelona because those structures, that way of playing has pre-existed him. And this is why when he plays, it's like, this is what I do, this is my role. Whereas us on the other hand, considering guys like Nkunku come back, when Lavia come back, all these other players, like how are we going to fine-tune using all of them in the first team together? And should a young Kendry be competing week in, week out, when maybe it's best for him to assert himself playing for a club elsewhere, get European experience, fingers crossed Strasbourg can somehow secure European football at that point, and then come back, you know, fully ready and confident to really, you know, kickstart life at this club. Like I'm saying, I don't have the answers, but you guys in the comment section, share your thoughts and opinions. What do you think we should do? Should Kendry join us straight away when he's able to, or should we loan him out to Strasbourg for 1 year? Let us know below. Let's discuss the latest transfer news surrounding Victor Gyokeres and Victor Osimhen. We start with Gyokeres first, small update, but with Ruben Amorim, one of the most in-demand managers this summer, with Liverpool allegedly seeing him as the successor to Jurgen Klopp, with Amorim coming out to state recently, listen, I'm still committed to Sporting Lisbon, don't be putting rumours out there, I haven't agreed to anything right now. Well, we're learning from Gyokeres' agent that one of the main reasons why he even signed for Sporting Lisbon was to work under Ruben Amorim because he felt like he'd become a better player. And I think it's been proven because this season, 36 goals, 15 assists and 42 appearances. He's one of the most informed strikers in European football. But it's been revealed by his agent that, you know, if Amorim was to leave, then Gyokeres will feel like it's time for him to also move on. So let's keep a watchful eye over this story because his agent revealed in the interview that there are Serie A clubs looking at him, and that club is AC Milan. They really want to sign him, but his agent admitted that there is big interest from the Premier League, with them more likely able to afford the finances to make a deal happen. So that's going to be us, and reports suggesting that Arsenal are also following and monitoring the player as well. So my thing is that, listen, let's say hypothetically Pochettino was to go, you want to sign a new manager. If you want Gyokeres, I think the best way to entice him was if you sign Ruben Amorim, and vice versa. If you sign Amorim and let him know that he can sign his #1 striker to bring with him, then I think that could be happy days for both parties. So let's continue to see what goes on this summer, because I think there could be some very surprising developments up front this summer. So let's now move on to discussing the updates on Victor Osimhen. And we still got no idea who he's guaranteed to sign for next season, because reports coming out from France, Italy and the UK, they're equally stating that Paris Saint-Germain are the favourites right now. However, we are also in the running as well, and I guess maybe makes sense of this story. We start with what's happening with Paris Saint-Germain developments first, and essentially it's been reported that Victor and his camp were spotted in Paris recently holding discussions and talks of a potential deal. So, allegedly, Paris Saint-Germain would offer Victor a 4-year deal worth 30 million per season net, and of course the image rights will be decided and negotiated by Victor's team. Paris Saint-Germain have the money, they have the resources, they have the finances, they can give him whatever he needs, and I think to myself, could we necessarily match that type of wage packet? I'd be a little bit surprised, to be honest with you. Now in Italy, they report that Victor has secretly given his word to Paris Saint-Germain that he is ready to sign for them for next season. Now, let's focus on us, and the latest news states that we are finding ways to negotiate a better payment structure to sign Victor. Now that doesn't imply that we're set to overpay his release clause to structure a deal over time, absolutely not. We're trying to find an agreement over a 100 million deal, and we're exploring many possibilities to make that happen. Now, the report mentions that we could even look to offer players in exchange. We know that Napoli showed big interest in Armando Broja, and I'm sure we have other talents maybe they might be interested in, but I'd be a bit surprised by that because it seems like Napoli are ready to replace Victor with Santiago Jimenez or Jonathan David from Lille. So, you know, clubs, they want to sign players that they want, their #1s. I'd be surprised by that. You know, for me, I don't know how confident I feel. I mean, listen, I was saying before, I'm not expecting any club to be paying Victor's release clause outright. It makes no sense. I think that is the maximum amount of money that, you know, they could earn from that deal. And the only way that happens if there's like fierce competition over his signature, and that could just boost his value up. But I don't see that happening. I think for both clubs, they want to find an agreement, maybe between 90 to 100 million being the magic mark, that can allow either club to sign Victor, because, you know, listen, he's still having a pretty decent season considering his injuries and issues that's gone against him. But he isn't worth 120 million. I think that's way too much money. And I don't think Napoli are expecting any club to be paying that fee outright. So currently the battle is still on, and it really comes down to us finding the best possible way to afford this deal, because it seems like this is the major thing as to why we are losing, or not losing, but why we've lost our leads, because we were number one for this race. But now it's the finances, it's the wages, it's being able to afford this deal. And I think this is why Paris Saint-Germain now are growing a bit confident behind the scenes, because they have the money to get this deal done. So that's the striker news out of the way, my friends. Are you feeling worried? Let us know. And for the final story, we turn our attention to Serie A yet again, and we discuss Atalanta's informed midfield player in Ederson. Now, this report came from Goal.com Brazil, and it mentions the fact that Atalanta now are getting ready and prepared now to sell their star midfield player. I mean, him and Cooper Miners, you know, two great midfield players. Will be a massive loss for Atalanta, because both are expected to be leaving them this summer. And Atalanta are believed to want between 60 to 70 million euros. Now, there was strong interest from Atletico Madrid. They were the favourites at one time, but the report from Goal.com mentions that Premier League clubs, including us, Arsenal and Newcastle, are paying great attention to try and get a deal done. And for Ederson, I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, he's 24 years old. I think he's like between 6 foot to 6'2", either one. He's an all-action style midfield player, which means that for myself, I think he suits playing box-to-box more, where, listen, when you play box-to-box, you have other duties, right? You know, you break the lines with your runs, with how you receive inside the box, you know, how you get inside the box as well too. Just line-breaking actions that don't always involve being on the ball. But the reason why I mentioned that Ederson is all action is that he can play as an attacking mid, he can play as a midfielder, and he can play as a DM. He can play in a 2, he can play in a 3, and he has that sense of physicality. He's not afraid to make challenges. You know, he gets his body in front of the ball, and he can play a short game, he can play a transitional game. And again, I feel like with these types of attributes to his game, it makes him very suited to becoming a potential Premier League football player. And I'm sure you guys listening are probably thinking of a player that we currently own that sounds a bit similar to him. And obviously you'd be right if you said Conor Gallagher. But the reality is that it does not seem like Conor is set to sign any new contract extension. And that means that we are probably going to sign another midfield player. And obviously, I think an Ederson as a replacement for Gallagher would be very interesting, because we're essentially going for the same type of midfield role. And could that imply that maybe Pochettino may be here for next season? Because you know what? On a different note, listen, you're seeing how he plays. He is very good. He has all the top clubs interested in him. I was not surprised that we'd eventually be one of the clubs turning towards an Ederson, who's probably going to be like one of the future star midfield players for the Brazil national team. But for myself, outside of all that good stuff, listen, I want my future surrounding my manager to be secured first, because I don't want to keep repeating this thing of making signings of players without really having a proper idea on how to use them, because we don't know who the manager is going to be. We have to stop doing that. It doesn't really make any sense, and I feel like you kind of undermine all your very expensive investments when there is like no real like concrete super plan in terms of how you're going to get the very best out of them. And think about it like this. Obviously, Lavia comes back for next season. You've got Enzo, you've got Caicedo. You know, you spent, you know, Prem record-breaking money to sign either two. So it does mean that you have to get the best out of them. So do you do that by signing maybe a tall DM player that can offer that physicality and allow these guys to maybe attack a bit more? Or do you commit to using Enzo and Caicedo in a pivot, but you replace the manager to introduce a more passing style football that can get the best out of them? Or do you maybe sign a more technically proficient player that can maybe, suit that midfield three and have Caicedo keep playing on as a DM? I mean, there's so many different possibilities behind how the future could shape up in midfield. So, to be honest with you, I'd rather we secure a striker first in other positions before turning to midfield, because I think we have talents we can turn to already. We have players who are coming back. We have players that we're already on. And I just feel like that is, midfield is the most key area in your team that can really dictate whether you're going to win or lose. So, my friends, that is all the latest news that's dropped over the past 48 hours. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Catch me tomorrow for more videos. And on that note, I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lions TV. I'll see you guys later. Cool.